like this number. Don't you know he's listening? The 13. He's here.
You have entered the 13, a place where real stories about music, touring, and the beyond are told. Music does something to us. We all experience it in our own way. It can affect our senses, transport us through time, and release emotions. On this podcast, we will talk with people about the power of music and the beyond. What does the beyond mean? Let's find out together. Turn on your metronomes because this time is about to be tracked.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the 13. I'm your host, Ryan 13, and today on the show we have returning Andee Blacksugar. You may know Andee from such bands as Blacksugar Transmission, KMFDM, Blondie, and a lot more. He's on a lot of people's projects. He's a fantastic musician and guitar player and a super fun guy to talk to. Andee, welcome to the show. How you been?
It's good to be back on the show, my friend.
So I was watching recently, you've been putting like guitar solo tutorials to your songs on YouTube. And I'm going straight to gear. I was going to ask you all kinds of other questions, but you mentioned it was like the first one I saw recently. And you mentioned, the song was called Black Days, Techno Nights.
Yes.
And you talk about a pedal at the end, like where you go into the stratosphere with the octaves and stuff. What was the name of that pedal?
The PV Stereo Effects Processor.
Okay. And you said that was from like the 80s or something?
I believe that came out in the probably early or mid 80s. I still have it somewhere. I bought it used. It was just one of these weird things that I found in a record store, music store. Yeah. And it's kind of heavy, and it's got like a round rubber switch that is just doesn't look like any other pedal I'd seen. And basically what this thing does is, depending upon how you have it set up, it does kind of degrees of delay and modulation.
Okay.
And the only thing I was interested in was when the knobs were turned all the way up. And then it did this crazy swooping modulation. And it would just be constantly, whether it was on or off, it would constantly be going in this circle, like, okay. So my use for this pedal was just to punctuate a last note at the end of a solo. And depending upon where the pedal was when I hit it, it could turn into a dive bomb, or it could just take off. Or sometimes if you weren't lucky, it'd be in the middle somewhere, and it sort of wouldn't really be that dramatic of an effect.
Yeah.
So when I recorded that solo, I'll never forget it because, I was using that pedal, and my first pass at the solo, I hit it at this perfect moment where the pedal just went straight, like it was like catching a roller coaster on the way up.
Yeah.
And then I doubled the solo, and this time I was like, well, there's no way the pedal's going to do the same thing on the double, but it did exactly the same thing. So we're close enough. They were both like, upward trajectories. Anyway, this isn't going to mean anything to anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, but
so that's okay. Most of everybody who listens are musicians anyway, so we're good. We're good.
Well, but listen to the song that we're talking about. It's Popstar Kids, Black Days, Techno Nights. And the guitar solo is the video you're talking about is something I made a while ago.
Okay.
That was exclusively from my website, and I just thought it'd be fun to stick it on YouTube. Anyway,
yeah, so it was great. I'm glad you did, because I saw that it said Andee Blacksugar, was posted a new thing. I'm like, oh, cool. What is it?
Yeah.
And I love it. And I watched another one I listened to it on the way home today from work. We're gonna talk about that one too in a minute. But so I want to find one of those things, but I bet you they make a plug-in for it probably by now. You'd think.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they do because first of all, I'm going to look it up really quick.
Okay.
But I basically do the same type of thing with the Eventide H9 at this point. And it's much better because I can tell it whether I want it to go up or down. In fact, I have a patch that I've been using forever in my H9 that basically it's a crazy modulated delay that will go up or down depending upon where you have the expression pedal.
Okay.
And so in other words, you hit a note and it goes, or if you have the pedal in the heel position.
Oh, cool.
So and as you might remember, I do all that stuff with the knob on my guitar anyway. So like I have this weird setup. But
I was watching you do just kind of preparing for this one a little bit. I was like, oh, let me just type in Andee Blacksugar interview and see what was like the latest one. And one of the ones I was looking at was 9 months ago, but the guy brought it up and he was like, he wanted to know about that. And I already, I've already known about it, and you explained it, I think, on the last time you were here, but I still think that that's some of the coolest shit. Like, and I think everybody, especially who's a guitar player, would think that that's so cool. But my question wasn't, because I don't remember, and I was driving when I was listening to this, but did you add an extra tone knob, or is that just replaced the tone knob? Does that make sense?
It replaced the tone knob. So no drilling or routing or anything had to be done. It was just basically I sacrificed my tone knob so I could have this cool controller. But it's well, basically all the guitars that I play now have this. So this is just like a regular tone pot, at least by appearance.
Right.
But the function of it is to control expression parameters. And I could actually do that with any pedal that has an expression input to it. Sure. So I actually have right now, I've got this Red Panda particle pedal plugged in.
Okay. Oh yeah. I've seen those.
Now I'm not, I can't illustrate what I'm talking about right now, but I can use this knob to control that pedal or any other pedal that has an expression input to it.
Okay, right.
So I just need it to be split, and it's kind of it sounds complicated, but it's actually quite simple. Yeah, it's just basically a stereo cable coming out of the guitar, or a TRS cable, and then that gets split in a little box into two separate outputs. One of which goes into the amp, the other goes into, goes into the front of the pedal board.
Sure.
And then the other side goes into the expression input of whichever pedal you happen to be using. I've got a number of pedals that have the option of an exterior expression controller.
Okay. Right.
But I mainly use it with the Eventide. That's really all I really use it for.
Is it no matter what band you're playing with, is it just part of your set? Is it part of, I mean, it's obviously in your guitar, so you're using it for everything. You use it for Blondie. I know Blondie's, you're trying to stick to the Blondie music, the original stuff as much as you can, but you can put a little bit of flavor in there, right? And maybe.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, so you can use it in any kind of way, imaginable, really, to control the effect. So what we were talking about a few minutes ago was like a really radical effect.
Yeah.
But you can also use it for just very, very sober applications. Like, for instance, if you've got a delay and you want to use it as a wet dry kind of thing. And I'm riding that constantly when I'm playing with Blondie. So I'll have like, I've got like a an analog, like a soft analog delay that that I use on a bunch of songs. And what I'm using the knob for in that case is to either turn it on or off, or or varying degrees of in between. And so, like, if I roll the knob all the way off, it's totally dry, and then I can ease in a little bit of it. And then if I roll it all the way in the opposite direction, it's just endless repeats of delay. So I can actually make a lot of noise with it if I want to. And then I do other things with it as well. Like, there's actually a video on YouTube about this that I put up. God, when was that? A few months ago.
Okay.
Specifically talking about how I use the H9 with Blondie.
Okay.
Because the Eventide folks gave me another H9, so I felt like it was only fair that I make another H9 video and sort of pump it up a little bit more. But so yeah, one of the other things I do in Blondie is we do some really early songs that have like kind of a tremolo, like an old school, I don't know, Vibrolux kind of tremolo on the guitar. And I've got a patch that that kind of imitates that effect, but with the knob I can control the speed of the tremolo.
Oh,
so you can make it like fast, or and it's not as staccato as I'm mouthing it.
Right.
It's more of a warm kind of swell. But yeah, so that's like a really those are subtle ways that you can use this particular. It's like any kind of expression pedal that you use. It can be used for subtle things or really extreme things. And if you can just imagine that application being applied to, or that functionality being applied to a knob on the guitar, that's basically what I'm doing. And that way,
Fantastic.
I don't have to be near the pedals. I can be off, over on the other side of the stage if I want, and I can still control things.
Yeah, there's things like this. This is the stuff. It feels homemade. I know it's not, but it feels super cool. Like, Jerry Gaskell, and I was very good friends with both his sons, all three of his sons really, but Jeremy Gaskell had a pedal that they like went in and DIY'd it. Like, they took apart don't quote me on what it was, but it was like a grunge pedal, and they went in there and just fucking fucked it up and made it do this thing they had a band called Geek, and they I think they only put out one album, but there was a signature tone that Jeremy had, and then of course Joey's playing drums and rocking it out. But there was a thing about that band, and I really always thought it was because of, not just the guys and the musicians, but they even went in and became creative with how they made the sounds, versus like me, like, oh cool, I just got a new grunge pedal, like, yeah, look at me, this is great. Then
yeah.
I don't know, I love that stuff. And then there's also, there's guitar players, and especially in the 80s and 90s, that would hide their rig. Like, you're not allowed to see what they're using, and people are trying to get pictures of it. But I stand that's because they did something cool that they thought nobody else had thought of, and they didn't want to, get their sound stolen. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. I've had people ask me, it's not like that many people care, but like I've had some people ask me if I could upload some of my Eventide H9 presets, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Like, nah.
Like I don't have much that I can hang on to in this life, but like my sounds, my unique Eventide sounds, I think, are pretty unique. And I made them because I imagined them first. And
sure.
And honestly, like, most people probably wouldn't even have any use for these things anyway. They're just, a lot of them are really pretty weird, and they don't work without the expression pedal or the expression knob in this case. So yeah, that's funny about those kind of guitar players that had a signature sound that like this rarefied thing that nobody else could quite, Dimebag,
Dimebag. There's a Razorback sitting right there, and it's in the shadows. But
oh wow,
yeah, one of my favorites. And I
I
got
don't know.
speaking
I
of
don't know if I
signature
told.
sounds about bass, this right here, which is hard to see, it's got the Razor 13 symbol on it, or the whatever I am now symbol on it. But that's Doug Pennick's cabinet from King's X.
Oh
He
wow,
let me borrow it, and that was 20 years ago. I still have it.
what a guy!
Well, what a guy. He's in LA. He can come
I
back to
know,
Texas and grab it.
right? I mean, you have that geographical advantage.
Yeah, that's his fault. He moved to LA. I blame him. What were you gonna say? Because I so rudely interrupted you, and I apologize.
No, I was thinking about the whole signature guitar sound thing, and that was definitely a thing that a lot of guitar players went for. Obviously, well, Brian May is the first one I think of. Eddie Van Halen, Dimebag, Ty Tabor,
Of course, Ty. Oh yeah, he was
really
hiding.
unique guitar
He was
sound.
hiding his rigs when I was working for those guys. He went, not necessarily the rig, but like certain pedals weren't really, or they were stacked in the rack back when they were using those big giant rack systems before everyone's kind of figured out how to, like Doug's doing. He's with Tech 21 and he's got all that, all that stuff dialed in now, which is great. And I wish they would have done that when I was at Tech, because lugging that stuff up, 5 flights of stairs because there's not
Oh
an
my
elevator to
god,
load it was a nightmare. We called it the Beast.
yeah, yeah, that's no fun. Um, but I think that the signature guitar sound thing is something that when I was a kid, I was way more interested in that, and like having just one sound that I always used for everything. But that was sort of more when I was really just focused on metal,
Oh
and it
yeah.
was like a particular distortion pedal, and it was a particular amp, and I couldn't play without that specific rig, or I just wasn't comfortable. And at some point, I had to wean myself off of that and learn how to be more of a general guitar player and be able to play through whatever amp happens to be available,
Yeah.
um, and be a little bit more diverse. But it's got to be so fun to be one of those guys um, like Eddie Van Halen or Dimebag, and just having that kind of just zeroing in on this really incredibly unique sound and just riding that 100% of the time, really loud. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that I don't really have. I don't have a signature sound,
I didn't know
but
you got, well, I mean, you got the really cool thing going on with using that tone knob. And then you love playing on the Sully guitars. Those Sully guitars are the fucking tits. I mean, I don't know. I've been listening to some of your stuff. I know you have to be versatile because you're in KF. Wow. Now I can't say it, Ryan. It's like your favorite band from growing up, KMFDM. And then you
yes,
go to Blondie, and then you do Blacksugar Transmissions, and then you do, I'm blanking on the other one, but like they're all different, but they're all the same, and it's all you. I mean, obviously you have to kind of change for Blondie. I get that for sure. And then KMFDM is, well, they're kind of their own thing too, but I don't know. I can hear you when it's you in it.
yeah,
Oh, there, I know who that is.
yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I think there's certain things that I do that are really, I do have some really unique, quirky sounds,
Sure.
but I don't think I have a general signature tone the way
Okay.
Brian
Yeah.
May does or Eddie Van Halen.
It's
I guess
maybe
I
it's
would.
your style.
It's the style, it's the
Yeah.
phrasing, it's all that kind of thing for sure. Yeah. Um, but Jeff Beck didn't exactly have a signature sound either. He had a
That's
very
true.
garden variety Stratocaster, Marshall, um, you know, maybe a wah wah here and there or a little bit of reverb. But he wasn't really doing anything all that unusual. It was really just all about the way his hands interfaced with the
Mm-hmm.
guitar. So
Did you hear that? Didn't he do stuff? He did stuff on Ozzy's last album before he passed, right?
I did hear that. Yeah, it was all right. I mean, to me, it didn't particularly
Stand
play
out.
to it didn't play to his strengths all that well. I don't think it was cool, but I sort of feel like it sounded really compromised.
Sure.
Like it kind of didn't make anyone especially happy, but it didn't piss anyone off. He's a really
Yeah.
unique guitar player, and he's not a metal guitar player. So
Right.
I thought it was actually kind of weird when I heard that he was going to be doing that. Um, anyway, so yeah, so there's all these different ways, like you can be an Eddie Van Halen or a Brian May who, just tinkered with the sound and just experimented and tore things apart and built their own guitars and all that kind of stuff. Or you can be a Jeff Beck and just grab a Stratocaster off the shelf and be happy with that. So
Yeah.
um, so yeah, there's a lot of different ways of going about it, but it does really come back to your own personal, just the way your hands interface with the strings and the guitar itself, and of course the notes that you play.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I think the only band I was in a lot of bands, and I never developed. I did the metal. I totally resonate with what you're saying about being in a metal band, trying to stick to the metal, and then eventually realizing, oh, I'm pigeonholing myself here. I need to try to play. I need to branch out because like I was Metallica only,
Yeah,
Megadeth only, just the thrash metal kid, and then then that went into black metal and death metal, and it started getting heavier, and I just kept going in this direction. I was like, I don't know, and then all of a sudden, I fell in love with Nine Inch Nails, which made me go into the industrial
yeah.
direction, and then I went backwards. I was like, okay. Then I found Ministry. Then I was like, someone was like, hey, check out KMFDM. Hey, check out uh oh my god, Gristle. What the hell? Why can't I think of them? Like the
Throbbing Gristle.
Throbbing Gristle, and and then that was that was some industrial, at its beginnings, listening to like being in the middle of an actual industrial area, capturing industrial sounds and making just pure fucking noise. And like Trent Reznor said, there's something strangely musical about noise.
Absolutely.
I fucking love it. And then that made me break out again. And I just think, I don't know if it's getting older, because I do know guys that are pure death metal, pure metal only, and they have never changed. And I mean, I'm 40 and they're all my age or older. And I'm glad that I didn't get stuck that way and I got a little bit diverse. I started listening to some blues just for me because I feel like now I can branch out and listen to everything. I was listening to Texas country the other day. Country. But those guys, those chicken pickers know how to play the fucking guitar. You know what I'm saying?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's no slouches in that world.
Right. But
Well,
yeah,
I think that, being a stylist in that way, like you're talking about the metal guys that just stayed the course, you have to really dedicate your life to that, I think,
sure.
to be able to play at that level. Um, it's you can't just dip your toe in the water
Right.
of playing that, because it's so technical and it's constantly evolving. And if you want to stay, for lack of a better word, competitive, you really have to just dedicate your life to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's I admire those folks, but
Yeah.
I just it's not for me. I started getting curious about other kinds of music, and I just wanted to, I wanted to see what these different positions sounded like on the
Yeah.
guitar. I
Right.
wanted to see what these different, like when I moved the switch or like played with the volume down or even with a
Yeah.
tone knob, just like I wanted to see what else the guitar could do aside from just the full on beast mode all the time.
When you were playing metal, What was your amp? What was the amp and pedal or both or rack unit?
Yeah, it was first it was a Marshall combo. It was a 50-watt combo, two
Yeah.
12-inch speakers. It was solid state, which is actually good for metal. I found out later.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dime bag and all that. But yeah, so it was I think it was called a Marshall uh, split channel reverb or something, because it had two channels. It had reverb, and the clean channel was kind of shit, but I didn't really mess with that too much anyway. Yeah, and I just ran all the knobs all the way up,
Oh yeah.
and I had a pedal in front of it at all times, which was a PV, not a PV. Distracted because I found the PV effects stereo effects processor.
Oh
They
cool.
do exist on eBay. You can get one for $219.
Dang. All right. Right on.
But no, the distortion pedal was an Ibanez Super Tube,
Okay.
which is
I've
which
used
is
a lot of
a
Ibanez pedals, but I don't remember that Ibanez.
it's from the it's from the series of pedals they put out. I believe starting in maybe the mid '80s, where they started using more plastic. So it's like a
Okay. Yeah.
hybrid of metal and plastic. Like the early ones were much sturdier, and like you think about the that first run of Boss and Ibanez paddles. Boss is still really sturdy, but Ibanez started to get cheap with their design and their
Boss. Fucking Metal Zone. There's
the
the
metal
Metal
zone. Yeah,
Zone. And there was
yep.
another one that was the same color.
The
It was a
heavy
different
metal pedal.
a heavy metal pedal. Yeah. Man, I forgot about those until you just said
Yeah,
Boss.
I remember fucking around with those a little bit, but uh I don't think that either one of them ever sounded that great, for at least
They,
for me.
they for me in high school when I was playing out of a crate 25-watt amp for my first band, and I mean you had a reverb and a delay on that solid state head, and the distortion wasn't that great. I mean, I've got a crate Blue Voodoo back here that Doug gave me another, but it's the first run of the Blue Voodoos with the tubes in it. So it was like it had solid state and tubes in it or something. It's a freaking cool thing, and it needs a tube job. But anyway, yeah. So the heavy metal pedal and the Metal Zone were as close as we could get. With no money. You're 15 and you have no money,
Yeah,
so you mowed some lawns and you bought a pedal.
exactly. That was how I did it. Or I asked for something for Christmas or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, so the Ibanez Super Tube was this great overdrive pedal that I used on top of the amp's distortion. And what it did was it added sustain, and it really tightened up the bottom end. It just gave it like this razor sharp articulation on the low strings.
Right on.
And then it just sustained forever.
Sustain for
But
days. Dave
but
sustain.
it wasn't a dynamic pedal though. So it was
Okay.
basically, that you would turn the volume, you would just turn the volume on 2 on the guitar, and you're already in shred mode. It was that kind of thing.
Did you have a gate, or you just had to, like, was it scary, or was it just feedback all the time? Turn it down, volume down as quick as
No, I
possible.
never really, honestly, never used gates. Um, I guess the noise situation wasn't problematic enough for me to get a gate, and I was just always on top of the volume. The volume would always, if I was if I was stopping for so much as one beat between notes, the volume would come off. So I was
Okay.
just really quick.
Well, that's
At,
that's probably a good. I say I got used to. I don't know. I didn't. I guess I got used to a gate right out the bat because I bought a pedal that gated it for you because I didn't have rack units or anything,
right.
and I just wanted to be able to mute with my hand, walk up to a mic, say some things, and go to town and not have to really worry too much about the volume knobs. And I think I did myself a disservice because I learning to use the knobs and the switches. I mean, obviously, I watch guitar players like yourself, Ty Tabor, of course. I mean, any of the greats, they're using all of it. It's a tool. You kind of got to know how to use it all, and it is what it is. That's why I became a bass player.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. But right on, man. Hey, you went to Europe with Blondie. How was that?
Well, we went to the UK.
The UK, yeah, yeah.
So, well, it was really fun. I mean, we went over and did like all the big festivals. We did Isle of Wight and Glastonbury,
Nice.
and those both of those were televised on
Oh, cool.
BBC.
Nice.
So a lot of people watched those shows, and there's 210,000 people at Glastonbury alone.
Wow.
So that's an
Wow.
unfathomable amount of people. Yeah.
I I saw Metallica once in Houston. Well, I've seen Metallica a few times, but like the last time I saw him, there were 75,000 people in an arena or whatever, and I was like, oh my god! And you said 210,000.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But that's also not how many people were actually watching us while we were playing,
Oh, sure,
because
but they were there.
they're there. Um, it looked like an awful lot of people, I'll tell you that much. I mean, it all kind of looks the same after a certain point. I mean, when you get into the 20,000, 30,000, 40, beyond that, it's like you can't really tell the difference.
Sure, just a
It feels
massive
like the
humanity.
same. Yeah, yeah. But it was meaningful to be able to just get up there and do that festival, which has been going, I think, since the late 60s. And there was maybe a stretch of time where it wasn't happening and then it came back. But the stage that we played on is, I think it's called the Pyramid Stage. And it's just like, it's been there from day one. It's really
Oh wow,
legendary.
right on.
So it was like, I don't know, it was cool. It wasn't our best show. We had 3 days off before it, so we weren't exactly like super sharp, but it was fine. We played well enough, I think, and everyone had a good time. And yeah, it was a lot of rock
Where
stars hanging around. Slash and Dave Grohl and
Oh,
Paul
cool.
McCartney were all backstage, and
Paul, did you get to meet Paul?
I didn't. I just saw him walk by, and I was like, "That's
Oh,
fucking Paul McCartney."
that's cool. That's when King's X did the VH1 Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. That's how I felt because we were actually out with Extreme, right? And so like we're hanging out with the guys in Extreme all the time, but in that Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, fucking everybody's coming through there, and I'm just trying to be a good bass tech and not interfere, not get in anybody's way. But man, I wanted to pull the camera out and start taking photo. Be like, hey man, hold on before you go. I
Yeah,
didn't, but it was super cool. I don't know. It's hard not to fanboy out sometimes. But I probably would have fanboyed out for Paul McCartney. I don't know. But Dave Grohl too, because I've still never met Dave, and everybody I know knows him. Like all my friends that I've worked for and stuff, they all know, oh yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah, you come over, you'll meet him. And it's never happened. And I
yeah.
think he seems like a really cool dude. But
Yeah, he seems like a cool guy. I didn't chat with him, but we passed each other. And he goes, "Hey, man, great set," and like gave me a tap.
nice.
So yeah, he had watched the show and everything. Um,
Did you
you
guys
know,
get to go anywhere? I mean, on your days off, did you go out and explore, sightsee?
yeah. I mean, I try to do that kind of thing, but I'm not a sightseer type of person. I'm more like, all right, let me find a coffee shop, let me find a record store.
Yeah.
It's really just that kind of stuff, and I enjoy um, just kind of low key, um, sightseeing. Let's call it that. Just
Sure.
going to the city center and walking around, and it's fun to find little artifacts to bring home. But
Have you ever found vinyl on the road in another country and brought it home?
Oh yeah.
And the reason I'm asking is because I have a ton of vinyl I've had shipped to me from like Norway and the UK and Germany and stuff, but I don't even know how I would get it back. Like, just put it in your carry on and be very careful with it, or what?
Well, when I was over there, I found a couple things that I brought back. So this is Magazine, The Correct
Nice.
Use of Soap. This is a post-punk band.
Yeah.
This came out in 1980. And then Bananarama,
No way.
Deep
Dude,
Sea
look at that thing.
Skiving. And yeah, it's not that hard. I just stuck it in my suitcase and
And it came out fine when you got here. At 7 hours
yeah,
later, it was still in there and everything was all right.
yeah. And you know, I buy CDs too sometimes. Sometimes I'll buy a cassette just for fun. But
Oh yeah. Do you know who Crosses is?
crosses. I don't know. I don't know.
It's Chino Marino's one of his side projects, and
Right,
it's
right.
it's fantastic. Check them out. They're coming out with a new album, and excuse me. Anyway, the new album, I went and looked at their merch. They're just here you go. They're putting all their money to the merch, and they've got cassettes, they've got vinyl, they got CDs. I was like, damn it, I'm ordering a cassette. I have a Metallica cassette, never been opened, and I'm gonna have a Crosses set, never been opened. I had plenty of cassettes when I was a kid, but I wasn't smart enough to keep them, which because I had some pretty cool cassettes. But I mean, I've been trying to keep
Yeah.
the CDs, the vinyls, and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, there's marketing genius. If you're in a band and you can do it, make a cassette. I don't know why I think they're coming back.
You know, I have mixed feelings about all that.
Sure.
You know, like I actually I have issues with vinyl. I don't think it's the best format. I think it's kind of ridiculous in a lot of ways, but
Sure.
I do love the big packaging, and I love the participation of it, and you have to do something, you have to go over to a thing, and
Yeah,
but
I
it's
do too.
very high maintenance, and
That's
it's
also
very
true.
very, you know, it's very fragile, and it degrades every time you play it, and it's stupidly expensive.
It's really
um
expensive now. It's like when I was collecting in the 90s, they were on the way out. Like
yeah.
bands were starting to stop. Like Stabbing Westward's one of my favorite bands. Their first three albums are on vinyl, and then that fourth one, by the time it got to be the 2000s, they stopped, and they
Right.
were like, it was done. And I was like, I was very upset because I don't have a complete collection, but
Yeah.
they never made it. But at the same time, I'm a collector, and that might be my problem. But I also am nostalgic, so I do love to sit down, light a candle, grab a glass of
Oh,
wine, grab a glass of wine and sit back and just be like, okay, what are we listening to? And then just have listening sessions. In fact, my living room on the other side of this wall here, it's one giant living room. And so there's the area where people watch TV, that giant, whatever. It's just a long area where people knock down walls. It would have been individual rooms. So
right, right.
they made it look bigger. Anyway, so there's a place where you watch TV, there's a place where you listen to vinyl, and then there's a place where you eat. And I don't know. I love it. It's been my thing. And then when vinyl started coming back, I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to get into it. And it was fun at first, going to record store day, chasing down all the vinyls at all the different record stores, the special ones. And then it was like every record was $60 a piece.
Yeah.
All the really cool ones were $100 a piece. I mean, I'm still going, but the first year I got this many vinyl, and last year I got this many vinyl.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It's high maintenance, dude. You gotta take care of them. What would you
Yeah.
think? What do you think's better? Is it digital? I mean, CDs are a little bit better, but they still get all tore up.
No, CDs hold up well. I mean, as long as you put them back in the case, the process, the act of playing CD is not going to degrade its sound quality. I mean, I still have all these behind me.
Right.
These are CDs that I've had since the '90s and beyond, but like they all work fine. Um, and I think they sound best. But now
Okay.
everybody, you know, now it's not cool to like CDs. So, and there's nothing to play them on because computers don't have disk drives anymore. And
Oh, it's
now
awful.
it's fashionable to be into vinyl, but I still think that a high quality digital file or a CD is the best way to listen to music.
Sure. Yeah.
I know a digital file is also really unpopular. Nobody cares about downloading files anymore.
Everybody's streaming. You remember when like we were first starting to burn CDs and
Yeah.
like it didn't matter what you did, but because it went from that MP3 burning into the CD and then all the hi-hats and everything that was high had that crackling noise to it. Oh, I fucking hated it.
Well, that's one thing. Like home burned CDs definitely don't pass the test of time.
No.
Those usually become unplayable after 10 years. Because I have a shit ton of what do you call them? Data discs, like DVDs for storage, and half of them just won't even they won't even be recognized by my player. But anyway, so I was going to say I just got a cassette deck, a new one.
Okay, brand new.
It's by a manufacturer called Pyle, Pyle, and yeah, I hadn't had one for a long time, and it's been good to go back and listen to some of my old mixtapes.
Oh yeah.
And I'm digitizing some of those, and then I used to record on 4-track cassette, so I
Me
have
too. Tascam.
Yep. Exactly. So I have a Tascam 4-track that's sitting under my bed that doesn't work anymore.
Yep, I do too. Actually, it's in that closet. And I have a Boss BR8 that recorded to the zip discs. Remember that?
Oh God, yeah.
That was my step up. I was like, it was an 8-track and zip disc, so it still works. But I haven't figured out how to convert all the stuff I recorded on it on the zip disc to come over here in computer land yet, because there's not the interface isn't right. Well, I don't know. Well, anyway, now I'll stop thinking. I'll figure that out later. But there's some awful music I wrote on there that I would really love to share with people.
Yeah.
All like early days preset. Everything was preset. So like not preset. That's not the right word. Everything was the very beginning of like pretending to be a certain style of like a pod or whatever, but it was built into the Boss BR8. And it was, it basically said metal. And they're like, oh, okay, Metallica. And you'd hear it, and it was just really, anyway, it was really cheesy.
Well, I am really grateful for my 4-track years, because you have to be sort of resourceful to do recording in that way. And if you can get good results with a 4-track, I think it just means you're capable of, getting good results anywhere. And I like that it forces you to use, few ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're right.
I'm happy with. I still sometimes I listen to some of my old 4-track recordings and I go, wait, is that a digital recording or is that 4-track? I really can't tell, because it's such a clear, uncluttered thing that it just translates really well.
I wish that I had mastered or at least gotten good at 4-tracks, because I would listen to some of Doug's 4-track recordings, demos, and he had this drum machine. I can see it in my head, and I've even talked about it on this podcast before, but whatever. I think it was a Boss drum track, and it had pads on it, but he did all the drums himself, and recorded all the guitars and bass and vocals on this thing. I still don't know how he did it, but all of my stuff, because I was in high school, was like we were going black metal style, just hang a microphone in the room. All right, go. And just record everything into one mic. And
right.
I mean, metal. It worked for what we were trying to do, I think.
Well, my drum machine was the Alesis SR16.
Ooh,
So I went through 3 of those because I would just wear them the fuck out.
really?
And I think I went through 3 Tascam 4 tracks as well.
Oh, I went through several of them. There's a tattoo on my chest that I traded. I was 17 years old, and this guy was at a house party. I remember we were all watching Black Sabbath on a television. I think it was a VHS tape, and I was like, "Hey man, today's my 18th birthday." Because he was trying to be legit. He was at a house doing tattoos, but he was trying to he didn't want to tattoo anybody under 18. I just told him I was 18. I was like, I'll give you a 4-track for a tattoo. He took it, and I got a first tattoo. Then I had to go buy another 4-track.
Well, but that's a really good conversation piece because you can talk about it. It relates back to your 4-track years, which is I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I like to I like every single one of these have some, there's a guitar in here with some Alice Cooper notes about a whore, wrapping around here, stabbing westwards tattooed on this arm, stuff down here, chest tattoo. I got one on the back of my neck that I wish I hadn't done. I just did that to piss off my mother.
What does it say? Fuck you, mom.
No, it's just the devil. It's right on the back of my neck. And my mother is a huge Christian, and I was 18 and in a weird place. And I was like, fucking, that's the one. Put the devil on me. And I don't, that's just, for me, wasn't the greatest reason to get a tattoo. I mean, I don't know. I do have a couple of questions I wrote down. So what gear are you in love with at the moment? Like, what did you have you found anything new? Are you still resonating with some of the old stuff, or do you have something you just went out and bought or someone gave to you that you're just like digging, vibing on?
Actually, I'll show you something. So, yeah, back in the early part of this year, I decided I wanted to make the smallest paddleboard imaginable.
Okay.
Just for local gigs, because my regular paddleboard is locked up with Blondie's gear, and I do local gigs, and I particularly do this weekly gig at a hotel bar called the Silver Lining Lounge.
Nice.
We play for 3 hours. It's friends and 3 friends and I, and it's pretty casual. But I was getting tired of having to carry a pedal board as well as the guitar. And if it's raining, I've got an umbrella, and now I don't have any hands free, and it creates a lot of drag. So I found this little plastic carry case that I don't remember exactly what was in it, but I had hung on to it because I probably thought I might use it for something like this in the future. But my goal was to be able to fit my pedal board in here.
No way.
And this is what I ended up with. Now, folks that can't see this are not going to be able to appreciate it, but
oh my God, that's awesome.
It's a mini tube screamer, a mini chorus, a mini analog delay, and an EQ pedal.
I was going to say, I couldn't tell. Yeah, I see the EQ now. That's awesome.
And that's just a boost pedal. And then what doesn't fit in here, I put on the side. It's the Boss tuner, which powers the whole thing.
Oh yeah. Gotta have that.
The one spot situation.
Best tuner on the planet.
And this is these pedals all sound really good. And I've actually, I've used them on many of my recordings from this year.
Okay, so, right on.
So that's probably the most recent gear that I've purchased, I think.
What about guitar? What about guitars? Have you gotten any new Sullys? Are you still hanging out? No, it's all still the same.
No, Sully is working on another guitar for me right now. He's doing some experimentation with like some kind of a quasi neck through design that he hasn't done before, and he just decided he would use me as the guinea pig for this guitar, and it's basically going to look like the Stardust as far as the body shape.
Okay, right on.
But it's not gonna be a great departure for me, probably.
Okay.
No, I'm not really a guy that acquires guitars very often, and
you like what you got.
I like what I got, and I can't play many guitars because I'm left-handed, so I'm not really able to go out and just be tempted. You know, like if I walk into a music store, chances are they won't have any left-handed guitars.
Yeah. Oh, that sucks.
Or if it's a big store like a Guitar Center or something, they'll have a lefty Les Paul, a lefty Strat, and maybe a lefty Telly, and maybe one other thing, and that's it. So,
Do you remember the Hondo guitars?
I remember one of my buddies had one. Yeah, they
Looked
were
like
really cheap.
real cheap. Looked like one. They tried to make them look like Strats, but their neck was weird. And I had one. That was like I got one in like 1990, and I kept that thing forever.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine had one that was. I thought it was more of a Les Paul looking thing.
Maybe that's
But,
what it's a Les. It was a Les Paul. No. Maybe
well,
his was a Les Paul. The one I had would look like a Fender.
well, geez, I just did a quick Google search, and there's one. Looks like they did all kinds of stuff. There's a super like pointy thing called the Death Dagger, and it really, I mean, it's like the Dimebag guitar on steroids or something.
Hondo Death Dagger. Everyone
Wow.
on the screen now.
I mean, that is really just that is the most 80s looking thing. I
Dude,
mean,
I love it. I love the
it's
80s.
like a registered weapon.
Death,
But yeah,
Death Dagger.
Sorry to say I don't really have any gear acquisition stuff to.
Dude, that's okay. I was really impressed with the tiniest guitar board the pedal board ever. Like that's super cool. I never even thought about that because as a guitar player, you're always just like, how do I make this thing bigger? You know, it's kind of like drummers, you know.
I mean, for me, I just wanted to have so that thing that I showed you, that little case, it fits in the pocket of the gig bag.
Right.
So I can just really have one item that I carry on my shoulders. And that was the whole point of it, was to make it as small as possible. And you know, of course, like during the show, I'm constantly fiddling with the knobs on those pedals for different songs, you know, just to dial it in for whatever I need. But you know, that's kind of part of the fun too, is that I'm always kind of I'm trying to maximize the potential of these, you know, these humble little pedals.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's fun.
Dude, I love it. I love talking to you. Thank you for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. And I love that we talked like a lot of gear, and because like I'm kind of a gear whore. I like hearing about stuff I've never heard of before, or seeing cool things like I've never seen before. And this has been fun. And I hope you'll come on again and we'll do it again. Maybe next time we'll talk about, I never got to ask you since the last time. I know the last time you hadn't met Bigfoot, seen a ghost, or seen a UFO, but have you met Bigfoot, seen a ghost, or seen a UFO?
No, I haven't. But
All right, maybe next time.
A friend of mine sent me a really scary photo of a ghost.
Really?
Yeah.
Where at?
Well, her friend took the photo, and she, the person who took the photo, was staying in an Airbnb in a converted barn.
Oh, wow.
And she woke up suddenly in the middle of the night and felt some kind of a presence in the room. She didn't see anything, but she took a photo. And then the next day she looked at the photo, and in the mirror was a figure standing there.
Oh, that's fucking creepy.
So
Okay.
in other words, you could only, the figure would have had to be between her and the mirror.
Right.
But you couldn't see anything in between her and the mirror. You could only see this reflection in there.
Oh my God. That would scare me half to death. Be like, it's time to roll, pack your bags. We're going to the Holiday Inn.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Everybody, thanks for watching the 13. This has been Andee Blacksugar, and we'll see you all again on the next one. Later.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man.